Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony, and I'm going to be telling you fun little stories. Fun little stories? Well, I do my makeup for my date with my amazing partner tonight. So, let's get started. So, hair's all tied back now. So, we're going to go. Well, first we need to take these off, and then we're going to go in with a just plain light base. Don't mind the blue in it. I do a lot of other color matching mixing. Don't fucking worry about it. So, a reason why I wanted to make this video is because I've been seeing a lot of things about people being confused about just how things really just should be when growing up. I grew up around a lot of privileged people, and not like, I say privileged because it's just like, oh, they had all the cool Xboxes and everything, and I didn't get one. No, I mean like they had actual rich families and everything. I was always the poorest person in my friend group. Even when I had poor friends, I was always poorer. And so I never really understood what it was like to be able to have things. Especially, things that I enjoy. Of course, I had my art, and that's all I did. But then once I turned 10 and I got survivor's benefits from my dad dying, that's a whole entire another story that I'll get into. My mom started spending all this money and trying to live vicariously through me because I'm goth, and she was goth when she was a kid. And so I was constantly told how much weaker I was than she was when she was a kid. And, how I needed to be more assertive, more demanding about things, even though I never was. I was always a very passive person. Now we're going to go in with confess. I'm going to outline, since I have hooded eyes, I'm going to go in outwards in, then inwards out. So I'm going to be dragging towards the middle of my eye instead of outwards like a lot of other people would, because hooded eyes, you can't see shit. So we're going to very carefully tap the very tip of this angled brush I have. This is the only brush I have. If people tell you that you need a million brushes to do things, you could do it with your fucking finger. That's what I did like my whole entire life. But anyways, so yeah. I was basically paraded around. Supposed to be a little fairy princess from my dad, and then this, goth by my mom. And I always wanted to be goth. I always was alternative, living in my country bumpkin town. So, I thought, oh, well, we're finally bonding over something. No, it was just something for her to get jealous about later on in life, which she did, and she still is doing. I feel like a lot of those struggles as well came from, she treated me like a therapist. She would always treat me like I was her personal therapist after she had my brother, who is a number of years younger than me. He's a minor. Do not search for my family. So, after I got my second little brother, I was the therapist, and she would always come to me and tell me how much worse she had it than me and other things, and it just made me really question, like, my authenticity to the world, because it really seeded in me when I was young that my only purpose was to be people's therapists. Listen to them, help them solve their problems that they won't solve themselves, and then go back into my hole, basically, where, if it was my room, if it was school, somewhere where I would go to escape. And when I was a kid, it was most often school, because I loved school. It was where I could go and not necessarily be myself, but I had teachers. And that's why I want to be a teacher. Because a lot of my teachers were always the only ones there who were going to support me. And I feel like it's really important. So, yeah, no, it's crazy how a lot of people can sit there and think that they're doing something right when they're really not. Because, my mother was able to manipulate my younger brothers into thinking that she's this amazing woman, that she's somebody who can never do anything wrong. And it's sad. Because, I went up to my fully biological brother and I sat there and I told him everything that our mother was doing to me, how she was threatening these things, holding things over me, telling me how I couldn't do this or that, and that I was, just couldn't suck it up or anything. And, in the moment I thought, oh wow, he actually sat there, he understood. He didn't, because later that night I heard him saying that our mother was basically an angel. She could never do anything wrong in his eyes. And maybe that's true in his world. I still love him. But it's just hard to put faith in somebody and then going back and invalidating everything, basically, that you told them. And it's not like I was wanting him to rage against my mother and be like, oh my god, how fucking could you do this to my sister? No. I just wanted some acceptance from somebody who, I knew, I trusted, I was related to him, we had stuck out everything together. I mean, we were homeless, and we were jumping from place to place, staying with family, and my brother and I would stick through all of it together. But then he got older, and his beliefs align a lot more with my mom's, and it's kind of scary, because, my mom hasn't worked ever since my brother was born. So, almost 2 decades. And, I'm not shaming people who have a lot of kids and they have, somebody who can still support the house if they want to stay home and take care of the kids so they don't have to be alone. That's totally fine. Being a stay-at-home parent, it's a real thing. It's something that people do all of the time, and I have the utmost respect for people who are at-home parents. But we weren't looked after anyways. Never were we properly looked after by either parent. And it was just... it was different compared to everyone else's childhood. I think the hardest part about being that different child, it wasn't that, my mom and dad hadn't been together for a while. I mean, most marriages end in divorce. It's very common, actually. But being poor, it wasn't about being poor. It was being poor enough to where you didn't know when you were going to eat. You didn't have money for school supplies or anything. You had jack shit. And having people be annoyed with you and yelling at you because you couldn't afford these supplies at a place where you're legally supposed to be. And ever since I was in kindergarten, since I wasn't related to everybody, and I lived in Hickville, I was bullied for like my whole entire school life. And it wasn't even just like the usual bullying of just like, oh, haha, you're dumb, you're stupid, you dressed weird, you're different. No, because my teachers were incompetent, at least in the school that I was in grade school in, not in middle school or high school, grade school. When I was a little kid, they didn't care. So they would take me my bullies would take me to the very edge of the recess field, which was way too fucking big for anyone to be able to look over everything. And even when they did see something happen, they would just be like, oh, well, I didn't see it, it's such a big field, so nothing got done. And so they would take me to the very edge of the field, get a baseball bat, beat me up, and then go back to class. And nobody would worry or question why I had bruises everywhere, or why I didn't want to talk to anyone or sit with anyone. And then in 6th grade, or 5th grade, my dad passed away, and I just hit puberty. So I'm this little 10-year-old kid dealing with conflicting feelings about, what genders I like, or, who I'm supposed to be around, and then, boom, puberty and my dad's dead. So I'm really alone. And I think it was a blessing in disguise. Obviously, if my dad could still be around, I'd want him around. But had he still been around, I wouldn't have been able to be the person I am now. He wouldn't have approved of who I like or who I am or what I do. But it was a sacrifice that had to be made to develop. I didn't know it at the time, but that's how it went. But anyways, that's my ramble of thoughts. Let's put this mascara on and then we'll be done with. And there it is for you. My makeup that I usually wear on the day today. So yeah, let me know if you relate to any of these experiences. Let me know if I should talk about anything specific. I just wanted to ramble, get things off my head, give me something to do. So, see you later.